Hello and welcome to episode 149 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. I'm really excited to announce the guest on this show. It's a huge one for me and easily one of the nicest guys in music. Today, I'm joined by the frontman from one of the best bands on the planet, Beartooth, Caleb Shomo. We get to sit and talk all about his influences, all about the music scene and everything behind the music. But not only that, we get to talk all about their brand new album which is out now. As it stands right now, their new album Below is my album of the year. It's absolutely fucking awesome from start to finish, and I urge you all to go and check it out either now and pause the interview, listen to it and come back, or as soon as this episode's finished, go and listen to it. You will not be disappointed. There's not one bad track on there, and it's absolutely incredible. If you don't like it, you're dead inside. Honestly, it's that good. But before we get into the chat, and I can't wait to get there, trust me, let's just touch base and talk about the last episode. On episode 148, I was joined by the amazing actor Lucas Jade Zuman. We got to talk all about his brand new film, Dr. Bird's Advice for Sad Poets, all about his acting career to date and much more. And as always, I want to say a massive thanks for everyone that took the time and listened. It was a great interview and such a great guest, and hopefully he'll be back for more. But let's get back to today's episode. This is a huge one for me, and I mean it. Caleb is absolutely awesome. I'm so glad he's come on the podcast, and a huge thanks to Emma for making this interview happen. I love you, and I am honestly for the rest of my life in debt to you. I think the best thing to do right now is to get straight to this interview. Honestly, it's so good. Here's me and Caleb talking all things music. So Caleb, thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. Just happy to be here.
What I want to do today is there'll be loads of fans that have joined in who know of your band, but for the people that don't know of Beartooth, where the fuck have you been all your life? But until that moment, let's go back to the start. So when you were growing up, I'm sure you're like me, you had a job and all your money went on CDs and gigs and stuff like that. Am I right, or were you not? Was it later on in life?
No, it was very early in life.
Yeah.
I've never technically had a job other than being in bands. Started playing music since kind of before I could remember, and my life was music. It revolved around it. It's just always kind of felt like it was in my blood, I guess. And then, when I was 14 years old, I was in a band and we got signed. And then 15 years old is when I started touring full time. I am 28 years old now. And this is actually the longest time off of touring I've taken in the last 13 years was the pandemic. So
That's insane.
It's basically just been music and rocking out full time for my entire adult life.
So when you were growing up, can you remember those first sort of albums that you were buying that made you fall in love and shape the sort of bands you're listening to today?
Absolutely. My favorite band of all time is AC/DC, and that was like the first record that I went out and like bought with my own money was Back in Black, and that really changed everything. That shaped the way I act on stage, the way I write songs, the guitar sounds I like to use. I mean, everything. But beyond that, there was a lot of Motown. Huge fan of like the Temptations. David Ruffin's one of my favorite singers of all time. Michael Jackson, Toto. Yes, there was a ton of a lot of different spectrums of music all around at all times.
That's such a collective mix. I don't know why, but I had more of a inkling that you'd be like, yeah, I love AC/DC and Pantera and Deftones and all these bands. I didn't expect you to throw in Motown and Michael Jackson and stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, dude. Well, don't get me wrong. I love all those bands.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't really get into metal until I was, I don't know, like 13, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, at first it was very melody driven music. That was what hung around kind of the house a lot. And obviously if you've heard the band, the Beartooth, if you've heard our records, like choruses are a very prominent thing, and having some melody is always an attempt of mine. But that's just something I was raised around, and it will always be very important to me. don't get me wrong, I love just playing straight metal
Yeah.
like it's nobody's business, but yeah, there's nothing like a good hook and a good melody. That's still always going to be number one.
I mean, when I talk to a lot of bands and I'm finding out about the influences and the early sort of records they were buying that kind of helped shape their taste today, one thing that blows my mind is the sort of first gigs that they went to be kind of, because there's one thing listening to CDs and spending all your money on music, but when you go to that first gig and you see a band perform some of those songs in front of you, that's when you kind of get it in your blood and you kind of like, that's what you want to do for the rest of your life. Can you remember those first gigs that you were lucky enough to go to that were like, fucking hell, I'm never going to go and work in an office. That is what I want to do.
Yeah, I will never forget the first like metal show I ever went to. And honestly, one of the first shows I really even remember. It was Ozfest.
Oh, amazing.
I cannot remember the year, but it was System of a Down was headlining, Disturbed played, Avenged Sevenfold played. And I just remember, so it was like one of my best friends at the time in like middle school. His dad somehow through his job, he got some tickets. And he was like, I know you like rock and roll and like, do you kids want to go to this thing? 2002? Was that the year?
Wow.
Yeah. Apparently 2002, but it was like, you guys want to go to this show? I was like, sure. Go to the show. And, I had never experienced anything like this. It's at a big amphitheater. There's people everywhere. It's super hot out. He goes, he grabs a beer. We get a couple of, Coca-Colas or whatever. We go to our seats and fucking Avenged Sevenfold comes on. And they start the show, I believe, covering Walk by Pantera.
Fucking hell.
And I'm like, yeah.
Oh, man.
Like, there's just beers flying in the air. There's a mosh pit at the front of the pavilion. He's yelling fuck at the crowd. Like, I've never heard this word yelled so many times through a PA. I was like, this is it. This is it. I'm sold. And then Disturbed comes out and, they're playing Down with the Sickness and like fucking Stupefy and like
incredible
absolute bangers. I mean, and then System of a Down. I loved System of a Down. And I mean, their show, I was gonna say I thought it was 2006. I didn't think it was 2006.
You made out he was like about 6 years old or something.
Yeah, I was like I definitely was not. I would have been 9 in 2000.
Yeah, come on, son.
Yeah.
Put down the Lego. We're gonna go see Pantera. Yeah,
right. And oh my, but yeah, like they're just playing the fucking hits, and then it was the craziest show. And yeah, ever since then, dude, that's what I've wanted to do.
And that's incredible that you haven't had to go and get a taste of those horrible jobs that you just sucks the soul out of you and you just have to do it to pay the bills. I mean, you're very fortunate in one way, with full respect.
Incredible.
That's amazing because, a lot of bands I speak to have had to work their way up and they're constantly having to do another job in the background and just, it's like trying to get the weekends off so they could go and do some gigs. But it must be in your blood so much that you were destined for only one thing.
it worked. And again, I will attribute a lot of it to luck. There was obviously tons of hard work, and I played my ass off to become musically talented, and like I really did work hard. But at the same time, like I understand how insane it is that I never had to get a normal job. It's absolutely nuts. And then even from then, I tried, I understood that and I knew how crazy it was. And I tried to really set myself up, even, when the band was first really getting off the ground and I started making a little bit of money, I had enough to get like a little, just tiny interface, little studio setup. And, I got it to learn how to make demos. And then, after having that for like 2 days, I was like, you know what? I love the idea of mixing and producing and like recording. And so I just put all my time and my money into that. And I was like, this isn't going to be my backup plan because a band is only going to last, however long. So yeah, even out of the gate when I was very young, I wanted my job to be music. So I always prioritized like the reality that, you need to work to survive and to make money, and being in a band rarely ever lasts forever. So better set myself up with something in the music industry I can do that I can, make a living with.
And how is it that you find that kind of balance? Because I see a lot of bands where the musicians in the band, people like Thrice and the band A, where the guys that are in the band have gone on to do production, and they produce their own albums, but they also go and work with other bands. Is that something you see yourself doing a lot more in the future, even though you've got Beartooth as your number one project? Are you looking at producing other bands and trying to get, these up and coming bands heard and out there? Is that something you'd love to be doing a lot more of?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I used to do it way more.
Yeah.
Beartooth, became so all consuming that I just never really have time for it anymore. But even in the time off, like I got a couple of mix gigs. I got to mix a few records, which was really fun, which I haven't done for another band in forever. But it's something I really miss. And, it's so tough because so much of me just is dying to produce another record for another band. Like I haven't really, had a band over in the studio every day for a month and a half. I haven't done that in probably 6-7 years. And it sucks. Like I really miss that. But at the same time, Beartooth is really fun. Things are doing really well. I get to kind of literally live my passion project as my living, which is really amazing. So it's just this balancing act of like the reality that Beartooth is really great. It's really fun. But at some point I might need to take like, a year off or 6 months off and just like produce some records just to like scratch that itch again.
I mean, I've been following your band for many years, and when I've gone to download festivals and Reading and all these different slots and seen you playing support slots to bigger bands and then becoming your headline act, it must be hard because you are in the band and it's your main focus. But to be on the outside and see it, you just continue to evolve. As a band, to see it from the outside, it's nothing but respect for you guys to see how you just keep going and building up. And you see a lot of bands decline. You see bands just not wanting to do it as much, or just going on a tour just to sell, and just you can just tell their hearts aren't in it. With you guys, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, I've never seen you put on a bad show, and I do truly mean this. When I've seen you each time you've been in the UK, you've got better and better. And I don't know how you do it, but you just seem to give everything that you've got in your system, and you're, as a whole band, it's not like your drummer's looking a bit bored and just, this will do. You all are looking like it's the last gig you've ever played, and it can be in a Birmingham Academy in front of 1,000 people, or it can be at Download in front of 40,000. But what do you do as a band, or as you independently, that you're just so fired up every time you go on stage? Because unless you're really good at hiding it, you look like you're having the best time of your entire life.
I truly am. That's all it is. Like and I've also worked very hard to get to that point. When I was first starting out, it wasn't as, I don't know, going crazy on stage in the early years was just kind of something you did. Like, at least in the scene we grew up in, it was like, if you weren't going nuts up there, if you're just standing there playing, this music, that doesn't fly. You got to give it all you got. And that was implemented into me incredibly young. And with so many of the bands from the kind of like metalcore and screamo and whatever you want to call it, that kind of heavy scene, it was about going nuts. And then, Beartooth in the early years was very heavily influenced by a lot of bands that were doing that as well. Like, specifically a band called The Chariot, which was the band, one of my good friends, Josh Scoggin, he used to front the Chariot. He used to be in a band called Norma Jean, and he's now in a band called 68. But, we toured with The Chariot a handful of times, and I've seen them all over the place. And they truly, you want to talk about a band that every show was do or die. I mean, like, they did not care. It was just, I've never seen anything like it. They were, and that's kind of, again, like, that's the scene I grew up in. And then I just realized that, like, I don't know, that's just what I do now. I can't play a Beartooth show and just stand around. Like, I literally can't do it. It just doesn't work. Like, I need to the moment we start, it can be, at any time of day. I could have been awake for 30 minutes. Like there are days on Warped Tour where we played at, 11:15 in the morning, and I literally are somebody in the band's like shaking me out of bed at fucking 10:30. It doesn't matter. Like I'll get up there and I'll think like there's no way I'm gonna be able to get through this. Like I'm just gonna crumble. But the switch flips and I just go. And that doesn't mean I'm gonna put on a good show. Like I have definitely bombed many times, but it doesn't it mean I'm gonna try. I'm gonna fucking give everything I got. And it just, now I think I've become so addicted to that feeling of just being completely depleted after a show. Like if I don't feel like I just ran a marathon and got hit by a truck, like that's the feeling I crave after a show, is just that I know I gave it all. And now I've just been working on it. I've been trying to train myself to be able to do it longer, go harder, and get better, because I think that's what brings me more joy on stage. And I think what our fans that are paying money to come see the band deserve. Like you've said, you said in your opinion, we've gotten better over the years. And I really think that's because for me, I have so much respect and understanding for what it takes to get a ticket to come to a show, and for the people to really support you. Like after doing this for so long and being in multiple bands, it means so much. And I just want to be putting on the absolute best show I possibly can for every one of those people who got a ticket. Like I know it sounds so cliche and it sounds like I'm just totally like spouting out my ass, but this is real. Like, to take your hard-earned money to go watch me flail around like a chicken with my head cut off for an hour and a half is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be able to do that. I want my voice to be really strong, and I just want to be physically stronger. And so like, I mean, you can see behind me that I have like a little mic stand and a microphone. And I try and do this every day. I go to the gym in the morning and do like weights and, try and build up my strength. And then I come down here, I turn the lights off. I put, my headphones in with like a set list, with like a bunch of live tracks that I put together, so it feels like the show. And I go and I sing the set. And if I'm not singing, I'm trying to do jumping jacks. I'm trying to like do my cardio and like just build. And, it all started with just like, this is what you do, to me falling in love with it, to now it being something that I want to give back to the fans that are coming to the show, is that they get to see that do or die 110% performance every night.
Please never change, because I don't think bands realise that it's quite transparent. So I've seen bands that have gone on like a reunion cash grab tour and they've come back after so many years, and
It's
you
so
just know it's like, I love the band, but at the drive-in I was so excited when they came back the first time round. It's like, oh my god, it's been 10 years, and I saw them in London. It cost me shitloads of money to get a ticket, and I could just see the moment they came on, it was like, they're not into this, they're not doing this for the fans. It's fine and I respect them, but it was like, it's so obvious, and it was like, it just knocks it out of you as a fan. You're like, oh god.
Yeah, and they were, again, that's one of those bands that like, that was part of their show. Is like, you go to an At the Drive-In show, you don't know what you're gonna see.
Yeah.
Like it could be just, they're gonna do something insane. And I love that. And like, I want that to continue to be a part of our show. And the reality is for me that I'm only getting older, and that means that I need to work harder. When I was a kid, I didn't have to stretch. I didn't have to do anything. I just get up there, go nuts, have a couple of beers, and then see you later. Like easy. Now I got to get 8 hours of sleep. I got to be drinking tons of water. I got to work out every day. Like it, but you get, you get from it what you put into it. It's that simple. And, I want this band to be my life. Like I want this to go as long as I can physically keep putting on a Beartooth show. But when I can't put on the show anymore, that's like, I don't want to be one of those bands just forcing it and just getting up there and going through the motions to get a check. Like, that's just not, I'd rather be producing music than
you're not going to become the Who. Don't worry. I have no worry about that. I saw them with Eddie Vedder, and it was just like they're just let them be, just let them retire.
There's a time and a place sometimes where it's okay. It's okay to just take a nap and a change of pace.
Yeah, exactly. And at the moment, obviously, you're going to be promoting all the time, and it's only just over a week away until we get Below, which is your brand new album. I've been lucky enough to hear it, and for the fans that are listening to the podcast right now, it will be out, so they'll be getting into it. Now, how was it recording and going through all this during the shittest time of our entire lives? Let's not, sugarcoat it. We're all kind of trapped in this prison, and the world's gone fucking mental. But you still come through and produced, in my opinion, your best work. And you must be so proud personally that you've got something to offer back to all the world when, God, everyone's just taking everything from anyone at the moment.
Yeah. Yes, it has been tough. It has been tough, to say the least. Yeah, creatively. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even draining. It was just mortifying.
Yeah.
It was like, why am I even waking up in the morning? Like, what is the point? Like, I come down here and I come into this room and I pick up a guitar and I am genuinely trying to make something that's worth listening to and just can't. There's just no magic. And like, I feel like it was like that for everybody between daily lives and, especially being a creative for your living. Like it was tough. It was super tough. And then throw on top of that all the insane things going on in the world. Throw on top of that, just, the pandemic, the whole bit. Oh my goodness, the fucking worst year ever. Literal garbage.
Yeah.
And so to make a record that is this is a pivotal moment in our career. I think this was like the record that I had a really important choice to make, which was, most bands, I feel like if they're in our position, you have a lot of commercial success. You have some radio success. The shows are growing, the shows are starting to sell out. The rooms are getting bigger. You would think that the normal choice would be, let's lean into it. Let's write more songs for the radio. Let's write more commercially available songs that more people will listen to. They'll get more tickets and, sell more tickets, fill more seats, whatever. That's what the majority of bands do. I mean, because it is a business.
Yeah,
as well as it is a passion, it is a business. And that's how you grow. But I made the decision to just kind of do the opposite. I was very inspired by Slipknot, and when they talk about making the record Iowa, coming off their first really big success, they had a big choice to make. It was, do they lean more into the melodic, the catchy, or do they do what they want to do, which is make a really heavy record? And they went, fuck everybody, we're making a heavy record.
Yeah.
And I don't think I did it on the exact scale of fucking Iowa, but like still it was a big choice. I felt kind of like a pressure to choose. Do I make like a really heavy metal record, which is what I'm truly in love with at the moment and really want to do? Or do I go more for, what I know will be easier to get onto the radio and easier to get into more people's ears? So I just went for heavy. And like, so to do that, which was already pretty nerve-wracking, and throw on top of that the fact that, the isolation, every tour just keeps getting canceled, the dates keep getting pushed back further and further. The record's at a point where it's like, you can just turn it in whenever you want. We have no idea when is it going to be a good time to put this out. So like, whatever, just do your thing. Whenever you're done with it, you're done with it. For me, I didn't have any fire under me of like, this is the deadline, work, push. It was just exist and make a record. Thankfully, I made the most of the music and the riffs out on tours.
Yeah.
Which was great because, again, like I was saying, this is our biggest tours we've done. So much energy in the room every night. And I got to take that and translate that into the music. But then to arrange everything, to make those real songs, not just riffs that I know are going to be fun to play live, like to really make that a whole album, and then to put lyrics that really mean something to me during a point in life when I feel like nothing fucking matters in the world was incredibly difficult. And then to mix that, to really care about mixing, to really fucking care about the mastering, and to know that, like, you know, I didn't work with anybody else. Like, I didn't have outside producers, I didn't have outside writers, which is what I'm used to. And it's not for lack of trying. Like, I, you know, tried doing like Skype sessions with, you know, some of my really good friends who I've been writing with for years, and just didn't work. The magic wasn't there. And, you know, when push came to shove, I was just like, I've got to just trust myself and put all the chips down on this thing. And, you know, it really was so much passion went into this record, because I had nobody telling me what to do, nobody kind of steering the ship. It was just like, dive in and go as deep as you want and make a record. And it really gave me a lot of like the feeling I had when I made the first Beartooth record, which was, you know, before we were successful at all. And I didn't care about other people hearing the words I was going to say. I didn't care about people interpreting the songs in the wrong way and then judging me for thinking I'm crazy or whatever, you know, all those like fears that kind of come over the years of success. With the isolation came this ability for me to almost trick my brain into like going back to that place where nothing fucking mattered anymore. And I could, you know, as sad and as difficult as it was in those moments, I was able to find kind of that magic again of like writing a record because I love writing records, about screaming lyrics out because it really is cathartic and it really does help me mentally. Or like just even writing a riff being like, how fucking heavy can I make a part? Like I was, you know, 12 years old again. It was this amazing thing. And as much as the pandemic fucking sucked, I don't think I would have ever been able to create this record without it. Do I wish the pandemic never fucking happened and I had a different record? Honestly, probably yeah. But like at the end of the day, I think it made for a really, really special record. And yeah, just something I could never do again.
And that's the thing, as much as the circumstances are shit, you'll never ever be given this opportunity again to be put in this position with the surroundings and the life around you and everything being put on hold. So to listen to this album and hear how much pain, anger, hurt, upset, every emotion is so genuine, and it reflects in the music, it reflects in the lyrics, it reflects as the whole production is incredible. And I as much as it's shit and the world has gone to absolute hell, you've got something that at least is positive, and the world will absolutely fall in love with this album. Because all at the moment, if you know, the fans out there have heard stuff like Fed Up, and that just for me sounds like someone's gone into a gig with a microphone and just captured it. It doesn't sound like a normal song. It sounds like there's this, I don't know if it's ambience or whatever it is, the way it's recorded, it sounds like I'm there. It's hitting me in the ribs. I'm shaking. My body's like, oh my God. And it doesn't sound like anything else you've done. It doesn't sound like a record that is also coming out this year from other bands. It's captured something. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But when I listen to it, I feel like I'm at a live show. And I'm like, fuck, I just want to fucking see this band in front of me now, ripping this stage apart and playing this, because it sounds like they are, you know?
Yeah, dude, thank you so much. I mean, that really was something that was incredibly important to me the whole way through making the album, is capturing that live energy.
Yeah.
Because again, you know, a ton of these riffs were written on the road and were written it was written in mind about being pumping through speakers and like playing so loud on stage and just this overwhelming energy that, again, another thing with isolation is I had so much time to experiment with all of my gear in my studio and come up with new ways to kind of change the sound of guitars and whatnot. But yeah, that song specifically, you know, I decided when I was mixing it, like, I don't care if this sounds good. I just want it to sound loud. Like there's there's like 6 different guitar tracks that are all just as loud as the other one. There are, I'm running the vocals through like this tape effect that kind of, you can hear the room a little bit more. So
that's the secret. That's what it is. That's what I've not known what it was. Now I know, but it works, man. It's the closest I've been to like a gig with not being physically there. So it worked.
Well, that means the world to me, because I was really trying to make it feel like you're just at a show in a big venue, just getting pummeled.
Wow. And what I do on this podcast to make it kind of original as I can is I always ask the guests, and it's more difficult for bands. I can see producers and directors quite quickly knowing, but the outro music to today's episode will be chosen by you. Now, I don't let you suddenly take a week to think about it, but it doesn't have to be one of your own songs, but I want to know a song that means a hell of a lot to you, that from the moment I ask the question, it comes to your heart, it comes to your soul, and you know it's a perfect outro song for this episode that would be for you. So I know at the moment you're like, I've got 10 songs, could it be this, could it be this? And then at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're going to wake up and think, fuck, why didn't I ask for this?
Nah, I got one.
But if you've got it, then brilliant.
Straight away. Yeah, it's a song by a band called The Dirty Nil, which is one of my favorite bands out right now. Amazing 3-piece rock band from Canada. It's off their new album. The album's called Fuck Art, which is hilarious.
Nice.
And the song's called Elvis 77.
Perfect.
And it is an amazing song. From what I have read about the song, it apparently is written from the perspective of Elvis dying on the toilet, which is hilarious. But like, I don't know, for some reason that song just strikes a chord, and every time I hear it, I am immediately just like excited about life, and it just rips. I mean, it's just a fucking killer rock song.
Awesome. I mean, that's really good. Most bands take a lot longer, and I'm still sitting here in 20 minutes going, okay, they're going to decide soon. We've got it down to 2, but you nailed it straight away. So that's the perfect tune. That's what will end this episode, and obviously we'll plug those guys as well.
Right on. Love it.
Caleb, we are literally out of time, but I wanted to thank you for all your time today coming on the episode. I am so excited for this album to drop. It's annoying when you review albums and you get them early because you want to tell the whole world, and you're like, guess what? Have you heard this song? And they're like, oh no, you haven't yet. But in a week's time, everything changes, and all the people I'm telling to listen to it will be able to. And I can't wait for people to hear this album, because honestly, in my opinion, it's your best work. And I don't want another lockdown, so you have to then produce another album like this, but this is going to be an album that people can be talking about for a long time.
Well, I appreciate that so very much. Seriously, had an absolute blast today, Mark. Thanks so much for having me. It's been incredible.
Awesome. And when you're on the road later next year, I'll come down to a show, we'll hook up with Emma, we'll have a beer, and we'll catch up properly.
Better believe it. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming on the show, dude, and I really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks. You too.
So there it is, there's my interview with me and Caleb, and as I said at the start of today's episode, he's an absolute legend. Such a great guy, so interesting, and easily one of my favourite episodes I've done, and we're nearly at the big 150. A massive thank you for Caleb for coming on, and as I said earlier, the album is out now. It's called Below, and you need to do it. Go out there, stream it, buy a vinyl, support this band, and go and see them when they play the UK. They're absolutely fucking awesome. And my dad did say to me the other day, he likes this podcast, but I need to stop swearing. And I can't when this band is so bloody good, but I'll try and not say the F word as much. I hope you've all enjoyed today's episode just as much as me. If you have, please jump on social media. Jump on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All the links are on markandme.com, and share the hell out this episode. Honestly, it costs absolutely nothing to share it. Go on there, hit that share button, hit the retweet button, do whatever you want. Tell your best friends, your family, your grandma, whoever you know to listen to this and spread the word. It makes a huge difference and helps this podcast so much. If you really want to win some amazing prizes from the likes of Last Exit to Nowhere and Vice Press, jump onto my Patreon page, because anyone that signs up and supports the podcast on there, not only do you get episodes early, do you get a pin badge of Mark and Me, do you get stickers, you get the opportunity to win some prizes that money can't buy. The prizes each and every month are getting bigger and better, and it's my way of saying thanks for supporting the podcast. Right, I'm going to go now, and truthfully, I'm going to go and listen to Beartooth, because they are absolutely awesome, and you should do the same. So until I speak to you again in just a few days' time with a brand new episode, look after yourself, listen to Beartooth, stay cool, and I'll speak to you all soon.